The grand halls of the celestial palace on planet Zarnia echoed with laughter as the royal advisors presented their idea to Princess Vexalia. Her 20th naming day celebration approached, and the advisors thought it would be amusing to gift her to a human as part of their cultural exchange program. Humans were still new to the galactic community and considered primitive by many Zarnian standards. Vexalia, with her iridescent blue skin and eyes that shimmered like distant galaxies, reluctantly agreed to this temporary arrangement, a diplomatic mission they called it, but she knew it was merely for their amusement. The princess had studied human customs, but never actually met one of these peculiar beings. The royal advisors chose Earth as the destination, a small blue planet that had only recently achieved space travel. The humans there were considered amusing with their short lifespans and emotional nature. Zarnians lived for centuries and prided themselves on logical thinking. Princess Vexalia prepared for her journey with mixed feelings. She packed minimal belongings since human accommodations were known to be small. She had been told she would stay with a single human, not even a leader or person of importance, just an ordinary citizen. This part of the joke stung her royal pride the most. On the day of departure, the royal court gathered to see her off, many hiding smiles behind formal gestures. Vexalia kept her head high, refusing to show any discomfort. Her mother, the queen, pulled her aside before she boarded the transport ship. "Learn from them, but do not forget who you are." "The queen," said, her voice cool and distant as always, "you are Zarnian royalty, regardless of where you stand in the universe." Vexalia nodded, though. Secretly, she wondered what it might be like to be someone else just for a little while. The journey took several days, the royal ship moving smoothly through space. Vexalia spent the time reading reports about Earth, its history, climate, and most importantly, its people. Humans fascinated her despite the court's dismissal of them. They had survived, despite countless wars, natural disasters, and their own biological limitations. Kate Miller woke early on the day the alien visitor was scheduled to arrive. She had spent weeks preparing her small home outside Las Vegas, making sure everything was clean and comfortable. She still could not believe she had been selected for the interspecies exchange program. Kate worked as a botanist for the Earth Space Coalition, creating sustainable plant systems for space habitats. Her work was important but not prestigious. She lived alone in a modest house surrounded by her experimental gardens. When the official notification had arrived, she thought it must be a mistake. Why would a royal from an advanced civilization stay with her? She had asked her supervisor, who simply shrugged and said the Zarnians had their reasons. Kate suspected those reasons might not be flattering to humans, but she was determined to be a good host regardless. The morning sun was bright as Kate waited outside her home. The landing area had been prepared in her backyard, a simple circle cleared of vegetation and marked with lights. She wore her best clothes, not fancy by any standards, but clean and professional. She wanted to make a good impression for Earth. The Zarnian shuttle arrived precisely on schedule, descending from the sky with barely a sound. Unlike the noisy human spacecraft Kate had seen, it hovered momentarily before settling. Gently on the ground, the door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a tall, slender figure. Princess Vexalia stepped out, her movements graceful. Despite the slightly stronger Earth gravity, her skin was a soft blue that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Her eyes large and dark with flecks of silver that caught the light. Her long hair was white like fresh snow and braided with tiny crystals. Kate found herself speechless. The alien princess was more beautiful than any being she had ever seen. Not just exotic, but elegant in a way that seemed almost impossible. Vexalia surveyed her surroundings, her expression carefully neutral, though Kate thought she detected a hint of surprise. "Welcome to Earth." Kate finally managed to say, "I am Kate Miller, your host for the next 3 months." She extended her hand, then remembered that Zarnians did not shake hands and quickly lowered it again. Feeling awkward, Princess Vexalia inclined her head slightly. "I am Vexalia of House Lumen, 7th Princess of the Zarnian Celestial Empire. I thank you for your hospitality." Her voice was musical with an accent Kate could not place. The first moments were uncomfortable, filled with formal introductions and explanations. Kate showed Vexalia to the guest room. She had prepared simple by royal standards, But the best she could offer, the princess placed a small device on the bedside table which hummed softly, adjusting the room's humidity and temperature. Kate explained the basics of her home, how the shower worked, where to find food, what areas were private and which were shared. Vexalia listened carefully, asking few questions, her eyes taking in everything with an intensity that made Kate nervous. "Would you like to rest after your journey, or would you prefer a tour of the property?" Kate asked, uncertain of the proper protocol. Vexalia considered for a moment. "I would prefer to begin learning immediately if that is acceptable," the princess replied. "We have limited time, and much to observe." Kate nodded, and began showing Vexalia around her small home, and then the gardens outside, which were her pride and joy. The princess seemed particularly interested in the plants, asking detailed questions about their care and purpose. As the tour continued, Kate gradually relaxed. Vexalia might be royalty from an advanced civilization, but her curiosity seemed genuine, her questions thoughtful. By the time evening approached, they had established a tentative rapport. That night, as Vexalia sat alone in her room, she recorded her first impressions of Earth and her human host. "The planet is more vibrant than expected," she noted. "The human Kate Miller seems intelligent, despite her species' limitations. Her dwelling is modest, but functional. The court will find my reports amusing." Little did the princess know that her time on Earth would change her in ways the royal court never anticipated, and their practical joke would have consequences that would echo across both worlds for generations to come. The first week of cohabitation was filled with awkward moments and cultural misunderstandings. Vexalia was accustomed to servants attending her every need, while Kate lived simply doing everything herself. The princess watched with barely concealed shock as Kate cooked, cleaned, and maintained her own dwelling on. The third morning, Kate found Vexalia standing in the kitchen staring at the coffee maker with confusion. "I wish to try this beverage you consume each morning," the princess stated. Kate smiled and showed her how to operate the machine, explaining the concept of caffeine and why humans enjoyed it. When Vexalia took her first sip, her large eyes widened, and she made a sound that Kate realized was the Zarnian equivalent of a laugh. "It is bitter yet stimulating," the princess observed. "Fascinating that your species would develop a dependency on such a substance." Kate began to see that despite her royal status, Vexalia was genuinely curious about human life. The princess observed everything with scientific interest, taking notes on what Kate suspected would become an amusing report for the Zarnian court about primitive human habits. Each day brought new discoveries for both of them. Kate learned that Zarnians required less sleep than humans, but needed daily meditation to process information properly. Vexalia discovered that humans found joy in simple pleasures, like watching the sunset or feeling the wind on their skin. Kate taught Vexalia about Earth customs: cooking, simple meals, tending the garden, watching old movies under blankets. Things the princess had never experienced in her privileged life at the palace. Gradually, Vexalia began to see beauty in the simplicity of human existence, something lacking in her own carefully controlled royal life. One evening, as they sat on Kate's porch, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky, Vexalia pointed to a faint bluish star. "That is my home system," she said, her voice softer than usual. "From there, your sun looks even smaller than that distant star." Kate turned to look at her, the alien princess silhouetted against the twilight. "Do you miss it?" she asked. Vexalia was silent for a long moment. "I miss certain aspects," she finally replied. "But your world has unexpected qualities that mine does not." "What qualities?" Kate asked, genuinely curious. Vexalia gestured to the garden, the desert beyond the mountains. "In the distance, there is an untamed quality to Earth, a wildness that Zarnia lost centuries ago when we mastered our environment on my world. Everything is controlled perfect, but perhaps too perfect." The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship. After that evening, Vexalia began asking more personal questions, not just about human biology and customs, but about Kate's life, her hopes and dreams, her past relationships. Kate answered honestly, finding it strangely easy to talk to someone from another world. Vexalia confessed that her presence on Earth was merely a prank by the royal court, a way to amuse themselves by sending a princess to live among primitives. Kate laughed, not offended at all. She explained that humans were used to being underestimated. Their history was full of such examples, yet they always persevered. That is the human spirit. Kate said, "We fall down. We get back up. We keep trying, even when the odds seem impossible." Vexalia tilted her head, considering Zarnians do not face failure often. "Perhaps that is why we do not understand your kind. We have not needed to develop such resilience." As the second week passed, their routine became more comfortable. Each morning they shared coffee and breakfast, Kate going to her laboratory 3 days a week, while Vexalia studied human culture through books, films, and the limited internet access she was permitted. On other days they explored together. Kate took Vexalia to see the nearby desert, explaining the complex ecosystem that thrived in the seemingly barren landscape. The princess was amazed at how life adapted to such harsh conditions on Zarnia. Such environments would have been terraformed long ago, made comfortable and controlled. "We shape our environment to suit our needs," Vexalia explained. "While humans adapt themselves to the environment, it is a fundamental difference in philosophy." Kate nodded, understanding the distinction and wondering which approach was truly better. On a warm afternoon, Kate introduced Vexalia to the simple pleasure of ice cream. The princess was hesitant at first, concerned about the high sugar content and minimal nutritional value. But after one taste, her eyes lit up with delight. "This is acceptable," she declared with what Kate recognized as a rare show of emotion. These small moments of discovery became treasured by both of them. Kate seeing her own world through new eyes, Vexalia experiencing sensations and emotions that were discouraged in Zarnian society, where logic and decorum always prevailed. In her private messages home, Vexalia found herself omitting certain details about her time on Earth, not mentioning how she had begun to look forward to the evening conversations with Kate, or how the simple human foods brought her unexpected pleasure. She told herself these omissions were insignificant, details not worthy of reporting. Kate introduced Vexalia to her co-workers at the botanical laboratory, where they were developing plants that could thrive in space habitats. The princess was impressed by the ingenuity, if not the technology. Humans lacked the advanced genetic manipulation tools of Zarnia, but compensated with creativity and determination. "Your species accomplishes much with limited resources," Vexalia observed as they walked home from the lab. Kate smiled, taking it as a compliment. "We have to, or we wouldn't survive. That's the thing about having short lives. We have to make the most of them." The concept of a short lifespan was still difficult for Vexalia to comprehend. Zarnians routinely lived for 3 centuries or more, with their final years spent uploading their knowledge to the collective memory. She struggled to understand how humans could accomplish anything meaningful in mere decades. Yet as she watched Kate work with passion and purpose, Vexalia began to see that perhaps the brevity of human life gave it a vibrancy and urgency that Zarnians lacked. Humans did not have time to be complacent. They seized opportunities, created connections, lived fully in each moment. 2 weeks turned into 3, and Vexalia realized, with surprise, that a quarter of her time on Earth had already passed. The thought brought an unexpected feeling of sadness. She had begun to enjoy her time with Kate, finding the humans' company stimulating in ways she had not anticipated. One night, during a thunderstorm that rattled the windows of Kate's small house, Vexalia experienced fear. For the first time in many years, Zarnia had weather control systems that prevented such violent natural phenomena. The princess stood by the window watching. Lightning split the sky with a mixture of terror and awe. Kate found her there and stood beside her. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said, her voice quiet beneath the rumble of thunder. Vexalia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The raw power of nature made her feel small despite her royal status on Earth. She was just another being at the mercy of natural forces. Somehow that realization was not unpleasant. It was humbling. Yes, but also freeing on Zarnia. She was always Princess Vexalia, with all the expectations and limitations that came with her title here. On this small planet, in this simple house, she could just be herself, whoever that might be. As the second month of her stay began, Vexalia found herself increasingly fascinated by human resilience. Kate explained how humans had survived catastrophes, wars, diseases, and still managed to reach the stars, not through advanced technology, but through sheer determination and hope, concepts foreign to Zarnians who relied on their natural longevity and technological superiority. Your history is full of darkness, yet you remain optimistic. Vexalia observed one evening as they walked along a desert trail watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded her of home. Kate considered this before responding. We have to believe things can get better. Otherwise, what's the point? This philosophy intrigued Vexalia. On Zarnia, change happened. Slowly, deliberately over centuries, the idea of hoping for better tomorrows was unnecessary when tomorrows were carefully planned and controlled. But she was beginning to see value in the human approach. The freedom to imagine different futures. Kate introduced Vexalia to her friend Lily, a doctor who worked at the local hospital. Lily was warm and welcoming, asking the princess thoughtful questions about Zarnian medicine and healing practices. They spent an evening comparing notes, Vexalia surprised by how advanced some human techniques were despite their technological limitations. Humans are remarkably adaptive, Vexalia commented after Lily had left. Kate nodded. You have to be when you don't have all the answers. Sometimes the best solutions come from working with what you have, not waiting for perfect conditions. These words stayed with Vexalia, making her question the Zarnian pursuit of perfection. Her people waited until conditions were ideal before acting, which meant progress was steady but slow. Humans rushed forward, made mistakes, learned, adapted, and somehow kept moving forward. There was wisdom in both approaches. She realized. One sunny morning, Kate took Vexalia to a local farmer's market. The princess had never seen anything like it on Zarnia. Food production was automated, sterile, and efficient here. Humans gathered to sell goods they had grown or made themselves, talking, laughing, negotiating in a chaos of colors, sounds, and smells. Vexalia was overwhelmed at first, the noise, the crowd, the unfamiliar scents, but Kate guided her gently, introducing her to vendors, letting her taste fresh fruits and vegetables. The princess was amazed at the variety and flavor so different from the nutritionally perfect but bland food of her homeworld. A small child approached them, staring at Vexalia with undisguised curiosity. Are you a space person? The girl asked, her eyes wide. The princess kneeled down to the child's level, unsure how to respond. Yes, I am from a planet called Zarnia. The girl smiled, showing missing teeth. Cool, she said before running back to her mother. That simple interaction affected Vexalia deeply on her world. Children were raised in structured environments with minimal contact with adults outside. Their family units, the openness of human children, their natural curiosity untamed by rigid social protocols, was refreshing. As they walked home, their bags full of fresh produce, Vexalia found herself walking closer to Kate than strictly necessary, their hands occasionally brushing, each touch sending an unfamiliar sensation through the princess, a warmth that spread from her fingertips throughout her body. Back at the house, they prepared a meal together, Kate teaching Vexalia how to chop vegetables and measure spices. The princess was a quick learner, though she had never cooked before, having always been served by palace staff. Cooking with Kate was enjoyable, intimate in a way she hadn't expected. Over dinner, Kate shared stories of her childhood, her dreams of creating gardens on distant planets, her desire to someday have a family. Vexalia had never considered family beyond duty and bloodlines. The concept of choosing a mate for love rather than political advantage was revolutionary to her. On Zarnia, marriages are arranged based on genetic compatibility and political alliances. Vexalia explained royal marriages even more so. I have always known I would eventually be paired with someone suitable, not someone I necessarily care for. Kate frowned. That sounds lonely. Vexalia had never thought of it as lonely. It was simply the way things were, the way they had always been. But now, seeing the compassion in Kate's eyes, she wondered what it would be like to choose for herself to build a life with someone based on mutual affection rather than obligation. The princess learned that despite being physically weaker than Zarnians, humans possessed emotional strength, that her people lacked the capacity to love deeply, to form bonds based on choice rather than obligation. Kate explained how humans created families not just through blood but through connection. That night, Vexalia sent her regular report to the royal court, but found herself unable to convey the true nature of her experiences on Earth. How could she explain these new feelings, these questions that had begun to form in her mind about her own society, her own future? She kept her report factual, brief, avoiding the personal insights that now seemed most significant. Kate noticed the change in Vexalia. The princess was more relaxed, more expressive, asking questions not just to gather information, but because she genuinely wanted to know Kate's thoughts. They stayed up late talking about everything and nothing. The barriers between them, human and Zarnian host and guest, gradually dissolving. One evening, Kate suggested they watch the stars from the desert. Away from the city lights, they drove to a secluded spot and spread a blanket on the ground, lying side by side, looking up at the vast universe. Vexalia pointed out her home system again, explaining the constellations as seen from Zarnia. Kate listened fascinated, then shared the human stories behind the star patterns, tales of gods and heroes, monsters and maidens. Vexalia was enchanted by these myths, so different from the scientific catalogs of her people. The way humans gave meaning to the random patterns of stars spoke to their need to create narrative and connection. A meteor streaked across the sky, and Kate gasped. With delight, make a wish, she said, closing her eyes briefly. Vexalia looked puzzled, and Kate explained the human tradition of wishing on falling stars. The princess smiled at the whimsy of it, but closed her eyes, making a wish of her own, though she would not say what it was. Their hands found each other in the darkness, fingers intertwining, neither acknowledging this new intimacy but neither pulling away. Either they lay in comfortable silence, the night air cool around them, their shared warmth, a cocoon against the desert chill. Vexalia felt a strange energy pass between them, something her species' scientific knowledge could not explain. Kate called it chemistry. The princess did not correct her, though she knew it was more than simple biochemical reactions. It was something deeper, a connection that transcended their biological differences. As they drove home, Vexalia asked about human relationships, how people found their partners, how they knew when they had found the right one. Kate explained that there was no formula, no certainty, just feeling and choice and hope. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we keep trying. The princess considered this. The Zarnian way was safer, more predictable, but perhaps less fulfilling. Her people had eliminated much of the risk from life, but had they also eliminated some of the joy, the deep connections that seemed to give human lives such meaning, despite their brevity? That night, Vexalia dreamed of home, but in the dream, the celestial palace seemed cold, sterile, lacking the warmth and life she had found in Kate's simple home. She woke with tears on her face, a rare occurrence for a Zarnian princess trained since birth to control her emotions. The following days brought new experiences, new feelings, new questions. Vexalia found herself watching Kate when the human wasn't looking, studying the grace of her movements, the expressiveness of her face, the kindness in her eyes. The princess had never been drawn to anyone this way before, and the feeling both frightened and exhilarated her. Kate began teaching Vexalia about earth music, playing recordings of different styles and eras. The princess was particularly moved by classical pieces, the complex harmonies reminding her of Zarnian compositions, yet with an emotional quality that her world's music lacked. They danced in Kate's living room, Kate showing Vexalia simple steps, the princess quick to learn their bodies moving together with increasing confidence and ease. When the music ended, they remained close, neither wanting to be the first to step away. As the final month of her stay on Earth began, Vexalia could no longer deny the truth: she was falling in love with Kate. The realization should have alarmed her. Interspecies relationships were rare in the galaxy and generally frowned upon by the Zarnian elite. Yet the princess found herself not caring about the opinions of her court. Kate, too, had begun to see Vexalia differently, not as an alien visitor, or even as a princess, but simply as a person she cared for deeply. Their differences, which had once seemed so vast, now felt insignificant compared to the connection they shared. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Kate tentatively reached for Vexalia's hand. The princess did not pull away. Instead, she intertwined her slender, blue fingers with Kate's pink ones, the contrast of their skin tones beautiful in the fading light. "I will have to return home soon," Vexalia said, her voice soft with regret. Kate nodded. "I know," she replied, the sadness in her eyes mirroring the princess's own. They sat in silence, both aware of the approaching end to their time together. That night, Vexalia received a message from the royal court confirming the date of her departure. In 3 weeks' time, the transport would arrive to return her to her duties on Zarnia. The message was formal cold, a reminder of the life that awaited her, a life that now seemed empty compared to her time with Kate. The princess did not share the message immediately. Instead, she spent the next days treasuring every moment with Kate, memorizing the sound of her laugh, the way sunlight caught in her hair, the gentleness of her hands tending plants in the garden. Vexalia knew these memories would have to sustain her through the centuries of her Zarnian life. Kate sensed the change in Vexalia. The princess seemed more present, more focused on their time together, yet also more melancholy. "Is everything okay?" Kate asked one morning as they shared coffee on the porch. Vexalia hesitated, then told her about the message, the confirmed departure date. Kate nodded slowly. "I knew you couldn't stay forever," she said. "But these months with you have been the most amazing of my life." The honesty in her words touched Vexalia deeply. On Zarnia, feelings were rarely expressed so openly, emotions considered a private matter not to be shared for me as well. The princess admitted more than I could have imagined when I agreed to this arrangement. Kate smiled, though her eyes were sad. "Do you regret it coming here?" Vexalia shook her head without hesitation. "No, I regret that I must leave." The confession hung between them, neither sure what to do with this truth that had been spoken aloud. Kate finally broke the silence. "Would you show me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Show me how Zarnians express affection." Vexalia moved closer, her hand reaching up to touch Kate's face, fingers tracing a pattern across her cheek. "This is how we share feelings." She explained, her touch leaving a faint luminescent trail on Kate's skin, a biological response unique to Zarnians, a way of literally marking those they cared for. Kate shivered at the touch, then leaned forward. Slowly, giving Vexalia time to pull away, she did not. Their lips met in a gentle kiss, a human expression of affection that the princess had read about but never experienced. The sensation was overwhelming, sweet and perfect. When they separated, both were breathless. "Would you show me more?" Kate asked, and Vexalia did, teaching Kate the Zarnian ways of connection while learning human expressions of love. They created something new between them, neither fully human nor Zarnian, but uniquely their own. As days passed, their relationship deepened beyond cultural exchange, beyond friendship. They fell in love, despite knowing their time together was limited. Kate showed Vexalia what it meant to be truly seen for who she was not. For her royal title, the princess discovered parts of herself she never knew existed. Vexalia began to consider options that once would have seemed unthinkable. Could she request an extension of her stay? Diplomatic missions sometimes lasted years. Could she abdicate her position in the royal line? There were 7 heirs before her. She would not be greatly missed. Could she simply refuse to leave? Kate, too, was thinking of possibilities she had always dreamed of working on. Off-world colonies. Perhaps she could apply for a position on a station near Zarnia. They could find a way to be together if both were willing to make sacrifices. They discussed these options late into the night, weighing practicalities against desires, duties against dreams, neither wanting to ask the other to give up too much. Both willing to compromise, neither finding a perfect solution. As the departure date grew closer, Vexalia made a decision that would shock the Zarnian royal court. She wanted to stay on Earth with Kate. She wanted to experience human love in all its forms, including creating a family. The biological differences seemed insurmountable, but Zarnian technology combined with human determination could make it possible. Kate was stunned when Vexalia shared her decision. "Are you sure?" she asked, knowing what this would mean for the princess. Vexalia nodded. "I have lived 20 years as a royal, doing what was expected. Now I wish to live as myself, making my own choices, however difficult." The day before the royal transport was scheduled to arrive, Vexalia sent a formal message to the court declaring her intention to remain on Earth as a cultural ambassador. The language was diplomatic, but the meaning clear. She was choosing her own path for the first time in her life. The response was immediate and harsh. The Queen herself sent a message reminding Vexalia of her duties, her position, her obligations. To her people threatening consequences if she did not return as scheduled. The princess read the message with Kate by her side, drawing strength from the human's presence. "I will not change my mind," Vexalia replied, though her hands trembled as she sent the message. She knew the court would not accept her decision easily. There would be diplomatic pressure, perhaps even threats against Earth, all because a prank had led to something real, something powerful. Kate contacted her supervisors at the Earth Space Coalition, explaining the situation, requesting protection for Vexalia as a political refugee. The human officials were surprised, but supportive interspecies diplomacy was new territory, and they recognized the potential benefits of having a Zarnian royal choose Earth. The day of the scheduled departure arrived with tension and uncertainty. The royal transport landed in the same spot where Vexalia had first set foot on Earth 3 months earlier, now changed in ways no one could have predicted. The door opened, revealing not retrieval officers but a royal envoy. Ambassador Zyrex stepped out, his tall form imposing, his expression severe. "Princess Vexalia, the court requires your return," he announced formally. Kate stood beside the princess, their hands linked in silent support. Vexalia met the ambassador's gaze without flinching. "I respectfully decline," she stated. "I have chosen to remain on Earth as a permanent cultural liaison." The ambassador frowned. "This is not a diplomatic mission. Your Highness, this is a royal summons. You do not have the authority to refuse." "I am not refusing as a princess," Vexalia replied. "I am refusing as a person with the right to determine my own future." The ambassador seemed taken aback by this response. Such individual rights were not recognized in Zarnian society, where duty to the collective always prevailed. "The Queen will not accept this, ambassador." Zyrex warned the diplomatic consequences could be severe. Vexalia nodded, understanding. "The threat, tell my mother that I will continue to serve Zarnia, just not in the way she planned. Sometimes the unexpected path brings the greatest rewards." Kate stepped forward, addressing the ambassador with respectful confidence. "Earth welcomes Princess Vexalia as a permanent resident and values the connection between our worlds," she said, her voice steady. "We hope this can be the beginning of deeper understanding, not conflict." Ambassador Zyrex looked between them, seeing the determination in both their faces, the connection that had formed against all expectations. After a long moment, he nodded slightly. "I will convey your message, though I cannot promise a favorable response." When the transport departed without Vexalia aboard, Kate turned to the princess. "You can still change your mind," she said softly. "If the consequences are too great." Vexalia shook her head, drawing Kate close. "My mind and heart are certain this is where I belong." The news of Vexalia's decision spread across both worlds, causing diplomatic chaos. The Zarnian elite were scandalized, while many humans celebrated this unexpected alliance. Kate stood by Vexalia through the political storm that followed their announcement, their love becoming a symbol of interspecies unity. Earth officials granted Vexalia permanent resident status with special diplomatic privileges, a compromise that allowed her to maintain some connection to her homeworld while building a new life. On Earth, Kate was appointed as her official liaison, giving them a professional reason to remain together. The first months were difficult. The Zarnian court imposed trade restrictions with Earth, attempting to pressure their princess into returning. Vexalia refused to be intimidated. Instead, she began working with human scientists, sharing knowledge that could benefit Earth without violating Zarnian security protocols. Kate and Vexalia moved to a larger home outside the city, with space for an expanded garden and a small laboratory where they could work together. The princess adapted to Earth customs, while Kate learned Zarnian traditions. They created a home that honored both their worlds. As diplomatic tensions gradually eased, Vexalia received a surprising message from her youngest sister, Princess Talia, requesting permission to visit Earth. The royal court had forbidden official contact, but Talia had always been rebellious. The visit was approved under the guise of a medical research mission. When Talia arrived, her eyes wide with wonder at Earth so different from the controlled environments of Zarnia, Vexalia saw in her sister what she must have looked like months ago, When she first stepped onto this planet, the younger princess was particularly fascinated by Kate studying the human with intense curiosity. "I understand now," Talia said on her final evening as they sat together in the garden, the stars bright overhead. "Why you chose to stay, the court told us it was madness or manipulation. But I see the truth." Vexalia smiled, touching her sister's hand gently. Sometimes one must experience something directly to understand it. After Talia's return to Zarnia, the royal court's position softened slightly, allowing limited communication between Vexalia and her family. The queen still refused direct contact, but sent word through intermediaries that the princess had not been removed from the line of succession, a significant concession. With the immediate diplomatic crisis resolved, Kate and Vexalia began discussing the future they wanted to build together, including the possibility of creating a family. Vexalia had researched human reproduction, finding it both fascinating and alien to Zarnian methods which involved genetic selection and external gestation. Kate shared her dream of having a child, a biological continuation of herself, something she had always wanted but thought might never happen, given her focus on her career and her lack of interest. In traditional partnerships, Vexalia listened with growing excitement as an idea formed in her mind. Zarnian genetic science is advanced beyond Earth technology. Vexalia explained, "We might be able to combine our genetic material with proper modifications. Our biological differences are significant but not insurmountable." Kate looked at her with hope and uncertainty. Would that even be allowed? It would be unprecedented. Vexalia admitted, but not explicitly forbidden. "There are Zarnian scientists who might help us researchers who value knowledge over tradition." Kate smiled, her eyes bright with possibility. "Let's try," she said. "If there's even a chance, I want to take it." They contacted Dr. Mira Neal, a human geneticist with experience in interspecies biology, and Dr. Elzar, a Zarnian scientist who had worked with Vexalia before her Earth assignment and who had quietly supported her decision to stay. The two experts reviewed the challenge from different perspectives, but both agreed it might be possible. The process would be complex, requiring multiple stages of genetic modification, cellular compatibility testing, and careful monitoring. But with Zarnian technology and human ingenuity, they could create an embryo that shared traits from both species, a true child of two worlds. The research and preparation took nearly a year, during which Kate and Vexalia formalized their partnership in both human and Zarnian traditions. A small ceremony in their garden, attended by Kate's friends and colleagues, and witnessed remotely by Talia, representing the Zarnian royal family. The day they received confirmation that the modified embryo was viable and stable was one of overwhelming joy. Kate and Vexalia held each other, crying with happiness at the miracle. They had created together a new life that would be neither fully human nor fully Zarnian, but something beautifully unique. Kate would carry the child, her body modified with Zarnian medical techniques to support the hybrid embryo. The pregnancy would be carefully monitored by both human and Zarnian doctors, a medical first that was already producing valuable research data for both species. As news of the pregnancy spread, reaction was mixed. Some humans feared the implications of interspecies breeding, while others celebrated the scientific achievement. The Zarnian court was officially silent, though rumors suggested the queen herself was privately curious about her future grandchild. Vexalia was transformed by the prospect of motherhood, a role she had never imagined for herself on Zarnia. Royal children were raised primarily by specialized caregivers, with limited parental involvement, but she was determined to be present for her child in the human way. Kate bloomed during her pregnancy. Despite the medical challenges, her body adapting remarkably well to the unique demands of carrying a half-Zarnian child. She spoke to the baby, constantly telling stories of both Earth and Zarnia, wanting their child to know both heritages. Their daughter was born on a spring morning with Kate's brown eyes and Vexalia's blue-tinted skin. They named her Hope, a concept that humans understood deeply, and that Zarnians were just beginning to appreciate. The birth was celebrated across Earth, while the Zarnian royal family gradually came to accept this new reality. Hope grew quickly, showing traits from both her mothers. She had Vexalia's enhanced learning capacity and slight telepathic abilities, combined with Kate's emotional intelligence and adaptability. Her skin changed color slightly with her moods, a unique trait. neither species possessed naturally. The first years of Hope's life brought new challenges and joys. Kate and Vexalia navigating parenthood together, learning from each other, and from their daughter who seemed to instinctively bridge their different approaches to life. The family became a living example of successful integration. When Hope was 3 years old, an official invitation arrived from Zarnia. The Queen requested her granddaughter's presence at the royal court, a recognition that stunned both Kate and Vexalia. After years of distance, the invitation included both mothers, making it clear this was a true family reconciliation. Their visit to Zarnia was a diplomatic milestone, the first official recognition of an interspecies family by the Celestial Court. Hope charmed everyone with her unique blend of Zarnian dignity and human spontaneity. Even the Queen found herself smiling at her granddaughter's antics as they stood in the grand halls where the prank had first been conceived. Vexalia felt the circle complete. What had begun as a joke had transformed into something profound, something that had changed 2 worlds she watched, as Kate showed Hope the stars from a new perspective, pointing out Earth, a tiny blue dot in the Zarnian sky. Other Zarnians began visiting Earth not as observers studying primitives, but as genuine cultural ambassadors. Humans traveled to Zarnian space stations for educational and scientific exchanges, the barriers between the species slowly dissolving as understanding grew. Kate and Vexalia established an interspecies research center focused on compatible biology and cultural integration, their home becoming a gathering place for humans and aliens alike, a neutral ground where differences were celebrated and commonalities discovered. As Hope grew, she showed interest in both her mother's careers, combining Kate's love of plants with Vexalia's diplomatic skills. She dreamed of creating gardens on distant worlds, bringing life and beauty to the stars, a bridge builder by birth and by choice. What began as a joke became the foundation for true understanding between humans and Zarnians. Kate and Vexalia raised their daughter to embrace both heritages, teaching her that differences could be strengths, that love transcended species and planets. The prank that was meant to humiliate had instead revealed the true strength of humanity, not their technology or physical prowess, but their capacity for love, acceptance, and hope. These were the qualities that would eventually earn humans their rightful place among the stars. Years later, when asked if she regretted her choice, Vexalia would smile at Kate and their growing daughter and say that coming to Earth was the best thing that had ever happened to her. She had arrived as a princess, but had found something far more valuable. She had found a home. Kate would add her own perspective, squeezing Vexalia's hand. Sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. Their story became legend told across worlds, a reminder that connection could be found in the most unlikely places. And Hope, their daughter, would carry both worlds within her, a living testament to the power of choosing love over tradition, of finding family across the stars, of seeing beyond differences, to the heart that beats in all living beings regardless of the color of their skin or the planet of their birth.